You all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Keep the palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for showing up. Anyone here for the first time? Nobody? Really? No one here for the first time? Normal, thank you.
Every time it's a beginner's experience.
Every time it's a beginner's experience. Wow. When are you going to sit up here and lead? Everybody meet normal. You want to know who I learned from? It's this guy right here. Yes. That's the reason I'm so screwed up, I guess. Right, normal? Together we try to figure this stuff out. It's not easy, is it?
No.
It's hard, this stuff. Think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. Sounds so nice, right? They should put that on a t-shirt.
Or on the back of a laptop.
Or the back of a laptop. It's down there, right?
Yeah.
Such big promoters those Buddhists are, screaming to the world, think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. But it's hard. It's really hard. No matter how many times you hear those words, think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. No matter how many Buddhist things you read, no matter how many meditation things you go to, no how many, yoga classes and all whatever stuff you all do, no matter how much of that we all do, it's still hard. You still have to wake up every day, the same place you've been in for however long, the same life you've been in for however long, and try to do this stuff. And the reality is, for me personally, I don't know that it ever gets easier. I hate to burst your bubbles thinking that 6 months or 6 years from now, all of a sudden you're going to want cruise control and stuff will be easy. It stays so difficult to do this practice. I'll never forget, every so often this kind of memory pops in my head, and it was years ago that she said it, but Vicky, who many of you know, she's been around here for probably 16 years and been such a huge part of this community in so many ways. Years ago, she said, Jeff says the same thing every time, but I show up because I need the reminders. And it was so true, at least from my perspective, is that no matter how many times we hear the stuff, see the stuff, put it on bumper stickers or t-shirts, it's still difficult. And so for me, that's the importance of Sangha. That's the importance of community. That's the importance of just surrounding yourselves as much as possible. I don't care where. It doesn't matter if it's here or, down the street. But just surrounding yourself as much as possible with groups of people in environments, in places, in settings that are also working on these similar things. And that surely is for many people, one of the, I think, biggest reasons people come here is because they want to be surrounded by, often they say like-minded people. And then I caution them on saying that because I know a lot of your minds and most of us wouldn't want to be like that. And I can promise you wouldn't want to be like my mind because it truly is a living hell in my mind. And I'm not just saying that to be humble or modest or oh, so whatever. No, my mind is like a living hell. Not even kidding you. That's what it's like. That's what this practice has shown me for 20 years, is that your mind can be like a living hell, and you can still laugh, and you can still enjoy it, and you can still have fun, and you can still make a difference, and you can still press on and just keep going. Because the alternative is not a good one. So yeah, it doesn't get easier, the practice. I think that from my experience, you get better at bringing the practice into as many elements of your life as possible, which then helps make life just manageable and enjoyable and pleasant. So yeah, it's much easier when there's new people and I can just let them talk. But all right, so we'll start with the meditation practice. Those are joining virtually, welcome, glad you're here. Thank you for showing up. As promised, over the last couple classes I've shared, we're in the process of upgrading our streaming system. Last couple weeks has been a little kind of hit and miss with it, so we're in the process of putting something else in place, but we have this temporary solution which hopefully will work better. So we're doing our best to be kind to our millions of YouTube followers. So thanks for joining us. With meditation practice, a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working, if you're doing it right or wrong. We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds on the inside of the room, sounds outside, and this is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often it helps slide in the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, however you are seated, just trying to sit comfortably. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice. Observing the sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from your practice, just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. With the body still, rested. And the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. The most important with the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. With a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice, not necessarily fun. This is not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And present moment is often filled with conflict, chaos, difficulty, challenges. That's life. So this is learning to be with that as it arises and responding in a way that's healthy for you and those around you. We spend so much time trying to fix, control, manipulate everything outside of us. And this practice is setting that down and working on changing your mind and your reaction to the world around you. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do in each moment. That's it. That never changes. For me, this practice is very simple. I think in its intellectual understanding, I don't find it too complicated. But in practice, as I spoke about at the beginning of today, it is incredibly difficult. And I think for me as a practitioner, the simpler I keep Buddhist teachings in my head, the easier it is to try to practice it. Buddhism can get very intellectual, very heady, very philosophical. And for me, I don't find that of too much use, to be quite honest, on a day-to-day basis. To me, Buddhist practice is about helping you as an individual, me as an individual, us as individuals, be kinder, gentler, happier. And if we are kinder, gentler, and happier, we can then share that with others. I mean, that's it. All the other fancy stuff in Buddhism is of little to no interest to me, truly. I think the first thing the Buddha taught, and many will say that the Four Noble Truths is, in essence, the first thing he taught, or it is the first thing he taught, and in essence, what he taught for the next 45 years was the Four Noble Truths. He just said it 84,000 different ways because he understood that people understood things differently. I know how I understand things, and it better be really darn simple, or it just doesn't make any sense to me. So for me as a practice, I stick to what's simple, and that is incredibly difficult. So with that, I'll pause, and always really just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice. And again, to those who are joining virtually, welcome, glad you're here. Feel free as you are to say hello. If you have any questions, you can put them on the chat box, and I'll do my best to respond. So we'll use the rest of our time to open up to questions. So questions, thoughts, comments? Yeah.
So my wife and I have been talking, I'm a spokesperson for our family, so she's not here today, but we both decided I would get to ask this question. So we've been talking, where this is all very new to both of us, and we're kind of figuring out things and bringing different ideas up, and we got stuck on something she read, I think, in the Radical Acceptance book, and it was about feeling maybe love and compassion for every living thing, which makes a lot of sense and it's beautiful. And then when we know people in power that are like causing harm to others and pain, and like how do we feel that for those people, for that person?
Yeah.
How do you get there?
Yeah. So the question is, just to paraphrase for those virtually maybe didn't hear it, is you're the spokesperson, back up, but you're the as you said, you're the spokesperson for your wife who's not here today, and you have been tasked to ask this question because it's something that you have come across with her, and specifically, and it's Tara Brach's book, Radical Compassion, or Radical Acceptance, sorry. You said Radical Acceptance, right? Because the other one is Radical Compassion, as I was reminded of last week. But Radical Acceptance, in her book, she talks about having love and compassion for all beings. And that is it's not just Tara Brach, like all Tara Brach is doing, all these modern day Buddhist teachers are doing is literally retelling in their own way what they think the Buddha said. So it is fundamental Buddhist practice to have love and compassion for all beings, all time, all space. So back to your question was, how do you do that for people in power or those that are really causing a lot of harm? How do you get there? In essence, is your question, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Slowly. It's not a book's read and then you're like, okay, cool, I'm there. Next book. No. The question around how do you get there, there's a few practices or just things I'll share, kind of introduce. You talked about having love and compassion for people who've caused harm, right? Have you ever caused anybody harm? Yes. Would you have wanted love and compassion when you were causing harm?
I don't think so, but I don't know if I'm deep enough to
Right.
respond.
Well, what I mean is when we are, so let me back up. When we cause harm, very often, what place are we in? Pain. Okay? Not everybody, not all the time, and I'm really just talking about my experience because I have no idea what anybody else's experience is like, but from doing this, I've found that people's experiences with this are very similar. So when we cause pain towards others, it is very often that we are in pain. People might not look at us and think we're in pain because we might look like we have everything and just everything. We might look like we have everything, but maybe inside we are just destroyed and have tremendous pain. And therefore our actions come from that place. We only see what we want to see. And we may look at people, and I'm not even talking about the people that you're thinking of. I'll just use me as an example, right? A real life example, because I think this is the best way to get this through to you, because also since you've known me a relatively long time, I was in so much pain most of my life. People wouldn't have seen it, didn't appear that way, didn't perceive that way. On the surface, had all the privilege, all the wealth, all the everything, in my younger years, that would have looked like, Jeff's life is great. He has everything. Yet I was in tremendous pain and destroyed on the inside, right? And therefore, my actions came from that place. And so, yes, many of my actions may have been wonderful and loving and kind to, maybe family or friends or whoever it might be. But then what about the actions that I shared towards other people? It was harsh and horrific and disgusting and violent and rage and very much the bully, all the stuff that I'm just sharing it out loud again. So that piece was there. What I would have needed in those moments, right, is not more people to hate me, because I already thought people hated me. I already thought people didn't like me. What I actually needed was more love, more compassion from people. I needed to feel that. It might have been there. I didn't feel it. That's what I needed. Any of the hatred towards me would have just made things worse. So your question, does that make sense so far? So your question very specifically around how do you get to where you can have love and compassion for somebody that you see as causing pain? My suggestion is to use people in your life, not jumping to people on a global scale, right? Not saying, okay, Dana, who are the 5 people that you're talking about? I'm talking about the people in your life intimately, immediately, that you know and love, that are around you, that you see have caused pain. And to explore in your own life throughout your journey, when you were that way, what did you truly need and want? And what you begin to see, what I began to see, was the only thing that is required in that moment to give people is love and compassion. Because if I want them to stop causing harm, then they need to feel so much endless love and compassion. And this comes back, I mean, they're literally, and I'm a bad Buddhist storyteller, Alex is wonderful at it, but Devadatta, right, was the cousin that wanted to murder the Buddha, right? So the Buddha's cousin, and I will completely ruin this story, so just Google it, right? But the short story is Devadatta wanted to kill the Buddha, right? And he loved him, welcomed him, taught him, yeah, sort of, close enough. It's been a while, yeah. But he didn't fight back with anger and hatred and rage. He didn't try to kill him back. His cousin tried to kill him, and he taught him love and compassion. And there are endless stories like that. You know, another one to look up in Google, keeping it kind of in a Buddhist lens, is look at King Asoka. Without King Asoka, Buddhism dies, and King Asoka was a ruler. Just killed people. That was his job. And one day came across all these dead bodies and realized, like, this isn't the way, and changed. And Buddhism, we are literally sitting here today because of King Asoka. He kind of brought this revolution of Buddhism back. So it's not easy to get there, but I found it most helpful to send love and compassion towards others when I recognize what I and those I know and love really need at those moments. And I also want to add to that, that in this process of what's called metta, loving kindness, sending loving kindness to others doesn't mean that you agree with them. This is a big piece. You can send love and kindness and hope that people will no longer suffer and still disagree with every single thing they're doing. You don't have to become their number one fan. That's the practice. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It doesn't mean you have to take their side, take their view. But they don't need more hatred. There's enough of that. The hatred and the anger and the power and all that comes from really dark places of pride and ego and greed. All the things that the Buddha said are the root cause of our suffering. The root cause of our suffering, the second noble truth, is called the three poisons: greed, anger, and ignorance. That's the reason we suffer. Greed, anger, and ignorance causes suffering. So if we are suffering, we will then just inflict suffering. So these people are greedy, they're angry, and they're ignorant, and therefore they're suffering. And what they need is to learn the practice of generosity, compassion, and ultimate wisdom, to see beyond their attachment to thinking they are most important. But, you know, if people all rallied up against me and hated me, never would have changed. So, time. About 18 lifetimes, you'll be there.
I'll start now.
Start now, yeah. Yeah,
This discussion just reminds me of the story about the Buddhist monks in Vietnam.
yeah.
Who were being tortured by their captors in Vietnam. And their main concern at the time was that they would lose the compassion for their captors.
Yeah, I got goosebumps because I truly have not I used to talk about that a lot. It's been years since I've given that example. But yeah, to paraphrase for those virtually didn't hear it, the story was in Vietnam during the war when they were being tortured. The monks, their biggest fear was losing compassion for those who were torturing them. That was their number one fear. Losing compassion for those who were torturing them. That's intense. And if you're not there yet, if we're not there yet, that doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad Buddhist. You aren't failing your, Buddhism 101 class. But just be honest with yourself. Like if you're not there, then say you're not there. If I'm going to roam around and be angry and hate other people, then be honest with the fact that you're going to roam around and be angry and hate other people. But ask yourself this, that anger and hatred that you have towards people, is it doing anything? Or are you the one suffering because you're angry and you hate people? That's the question for me.
Yeah, I find that I was the kind of person, always a smile on my face, but inside I was boiling, was really angry, but I was very smiley, nice and sweet. I was like, if only you knew, I am not a nice person.
Yeah.
I find compassion difficult because compassion means suffering with, and sometimes it's really hard to just sit with what I'm actually feeling. So that's why I want to fix everything, so I don't have to feel anything.
Yeah.
So how can I develop compassion with others if I can barely be with my own suffering?
Yeah, I think it's a balance of, developing self-compassion and having compassion for others. I think similar to, other things I've shared in the past around this is, I think it's a balance of when we help people, we tend to feel good.
Right.
Now, those that you hate, I'm not suggesting you go help them. Nor am I suggesting that in your kind of question, do you need to send all this love and compassion towards yourself because you're not there? You don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
But there are other people in between that you can help. I asked you last week or the week before, how many hours are you spending helping people?
Not enough.
Not enough. Well, there's your answer.
It's hard to do.
No, it's not. It's not hard to do. It is really easy to help people. Don't be lazy. Diligence. Samantha Padre. Practice diligently. It is really easy to help people. I remember years ago, the old Buddha for you, some of you might remember this. I don't know, Carol, if you remember this at all, but there was one day, and I forget why. I think in like 18 years, we've probably canceled this class like 4 times. My apologies, or something like that. And one day something came up on a Saturday, the old Buddha for you. And it was like, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes before class time. So, and even back then, I don't think we had the social media up as well as we did today or anything. So there was kind of no way to notify people last minute, really, that we were canceling. And so we just put a sign up on the door that said, no class today. We're so sorry. You have an hour now to go help people. Meaning like you were planned to be there. This class, Saturday 11 to 12, started at Buddha for You in 2009. So this Saturday 11 o'clock has been going on for 16 years. Like I said, we've canceled maybe 4 or 5, right? And I put a sign up that said, closed. You have an hour now. Go help people. And me, in my, optimistic way, thought like the following week we were going to come in and everyone was going to tell me how they picked up trash in the parking lot, or they put shopping carts back, or they helped people carry out groceries. So the following week I remember asking people like, so you had a whole hour like free, what did you do? People are like, I went and had pizza. It completely missed the mark from what I had envisioned. I envisioned like 40 people now roaming around the Bond shopping plaza doing good stuff. It's not hard. Nope. I love you. We've been through this before. Every single day, you can help people. You're just not. When you start, you will change. When you help people, you feel good. It works, right?
So it can be very simple things. I may tell people like thinking you have to go do all these. It can be very.
That's my point.
Simple things.
Yes, simple things. You don't have to go change the world and solve all the global problems. Again, I always default to George Carlin's skit on the planet. You ever seen that? Everybody wants to save the planet, save the whales, save the bees, save everybody. And he's like, the planet is going to be fine. It's the people that are the problem, right? The people need to change how they're behaving and how they're acting. And I'm not saying the planet's going to be fine. I'm just quoting Carlin, so blame him. But it's a great example of how everybody wants to have these big causes that they want to go save, right? What's that one? I really wish I was a good joke teller, but there's that one about like the person like drowning in the ocean or something like that. And then all of a sudden, like, it's like a religious thing. And all of a sudden a raft shows up there's like a raft there from somebody and they're like, no, God's going to save me. And then, does anyone know the story? Can you tell it? Who can tell it?
I can tell it.
Go ahead.
Somebody said there's a flood and someone's on the roof of their house, and the flood waters are rising, and then there's somebody who comes by and they said like, hey, I can help you, the water's rising, be careful, like you're gonna drown. And he's like, it's okay, God will save me. And then after that, I don't know, something else comes by and it's like, oh, hurry up, the water's like up to your windows now, it's still rising. And the guy's like, oh no, it's okay, God will save me. And then finally the water's like almost up to the very top of the roof, and a rescue helicopter comes by and drops down a ladder. This is your chance, the water's rising, climb the ladder. And he's like, it's okay, God will save me. And of course, the waters rise, he dies, and he goes to the gates of heaven or whatever. And he says like, where were you? I thought you were gonna save me, God. And he's like, are you kidding? I sent you 3 opportunities to be saved.
Right.
You didn't take them.
You take them. Just go do little things.
Yeah.
Pick up trash, help somebody at a store, whatever. You don't have to save the world. What else? Yeah.
I was kind of into all this a couple weeks ago. There was a conversation, like an offshoot around non-attachment. I'm wondering if this is kind of part of that too.
If this discussion is part of it,
If non-attachment comes into this conversation.
I think non-attachment comes into everything. Tying it to this conversation, yes, very often, and I can never speak for anyone, but very often we are attached to thinking that compassion has to look a certain way or helping people has to look in a certain way. I find people are often very attached to these ideas of what it means to help. We're also, in Buddhism, there's what's called the Bodhisattva practice. Bodhisattvas, enlightened being, these are all Bodhisattvas behind me. Kuan Yin for compassion, Samantabhadra, the big one here for diligence and right effort, and this is the Bodhisattva Manjushri for wisdom. And the Bodhisattva teaching is that ultimately the practice of generosity, as the Buddha taught, the root cause of suffering, greed, the first one. The practice of generosity is what we use to overcome any sort of suffering. And so the Bodhisattva practice is to practice giving without any notion of a gift, a giver, or a receiver. So we are very much attached to our ideas of helping. Well, we want to help these people and not those people. We want to help this place and not that place. We're attached to the things that we think are more important. Is any one human life, or any sentient being's life for that matter, more important than another's? Is any human life more important than another human's life? Ultimately, no. But in our mind, we have attachments to who we kind of rank. And if you got 100 people over here and 100 people over there, and they have different views, you're going to be attached to what you think is more important. And that's what we try to help. Everybody is suffering. So yes, non-attachment definitely ties into this. Non-attachment isn't so much just with stuff or people or things, it's really our views. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago you had said something like, paraphrasing,
Yeah.
non-attachment is to either care or
Love.
everything.
Yes. So a few weeks ago, and that's what I always say when I talk specifically about non-attachment, is it is not a cutting off, it's not detached, it's not unattached, it's not like severing, it's actually love. It is loving and caring for everything, everyone, all time, all space, all directions, not differentiating between who needs love and who doesn't. Does that make sense? And so in our views, we are very attached to who we want to love and who we don't. And again, loving everyone doesn't mean we have to spend our entire life having lunch with them. We don't have to be with them. We can remove ourselves. Non-attachment doesn't mean, and I almost always say this, but non-attachment doesn't mean if you're in an unhealthy, toxic, dangerous relationship that you just pull out this Buddhist card and say, well, I'm not attached, so you can treat me like crap, I'm going to stay here. No. Keep yourself safe. There's a discernment, the wisdom that comes into play that says, I may love you, but I will not live a life of being treated this way. The wisdom side is important as well. So non-attachment is not like just becoming a doormat and not caring. And that's what I mean also when I say love, especially towards self. If we don't care about ourselves, if we don't love ourselves, then we don't care how people treat us very often. So having that love for ourselves and all beings is really the practice, and really difficult. But please don't confuse it with thinking that that means you have to just, stay in these situations that are unsafe.
I have a question on practice.
Yeah.
So sometimes during meditation, I'm trying to focus on breath, but the same thought keeps coming. Is it skillful to release the focus on breath and explore why the thought is arising? Not on the thought, but why is it arising?
Yeah. So the question for those at home didn't hear it is around the practice of meditation. If you're in meditation and you're doing a focus on a breath meditation and the same thought keeps arising, your question is it skillful to try to then move away from the breath and kind of investigate the thought?
No, why the thought is arising?
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean by investigating. Like, why is the thought arising? So my personal practice would say no. But let me add to that. My personal practice would say, very much from a Zen practice, thoughts coming and going regardless, right? This is just for everybody who's not familiar with this. Breath in, breath out, thought arises, recognize, release. Breath in, breath out, thought arises, recognize, release. Regardless of what the thought is, if it's good, if it's bad, if it's neutral, if it's skillful, unskillful, harmful, if it's the same thought, regardless. The practice is all thoughts are just clouds passing by, come back to sensation and breath. That's what I would do in my practice. Now, with that being said, I do think it's important to pay attention to the fact that, wow, I keep having the same thought arising. What I would do in that case for me is I wouldn't explore it at that moment. I would just continue to train my mind to stay present. And then when I'm done with what I've kind of called my formal seated meditation practice, I would then kind of step aside, so to speak, and be like, what was that all about?
So explore outside the meditation.
That's what I would do, yes. Now, many meditation practitioners or those who lead would say probably the exact opposite of what I just said and say, yes, use that time in a quiet, safe space to explore the depths of it. But that's just not how I was trained. So I wouldn't even know what I was, I'd be using this unenlightened, ignorant mind to explore my own thoughts, which I'm doing whether I'm in or out of meditation. So I'm done either way. What else? Yeah, go ahead.
What about, it's an old term, but people still do it, is sometimes people, they need tough love. Otherwise they go through the system and things are happening and they're getting so-called punished, but it doesn't bother them, so they just keep doing the same thing because they haven't had any tough love.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I want to be careful with kind of our Western words of tough love and getting into psychology and the ways we should treat, certain people, especially children, adolescents, etc. But what I will say is, for me, I always default to Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom, and in the Tonka right there, right above normal, that's the Bodhisattva of wisdom, endless body of wisdom, right? And he holds a sword, and the sword cuts through the ignorance. It's very harsh, it's very sharp, it's very direct. And so, very loosely, I do consider Buddhist practice tough love. I think it requires honesty. And very often being honest with ourselves and others is not easy to do. And so, even for me in responding, as you all know so well, sometimes, yes, especially newer people need the gentleness to feel good and the warm, fuzzy hugs. And sometimes that just doesn't work, So, yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate you testing our concentration ability by, I assume, bribing the boy next door to bounce the ball.
Yeah, you like that? Yeah. I didn't know if anyone would bring it up. Often somebody does bring it up, but One, fascinating that you said boy, because you have no idea if it was a boy. Actually, not fascinating, not surprising in this culture that we're in, but we have no idea that was a boy. Yeah, it's, how many of you, many of you have been around a long time, but, and you too, remember the guys, because I knew them, who would always wash the dog, right? It was like right about 11:05, 11:10, right when we started, they would go out, and for 10 minutes, we'd all sit listening to the dog get washed, But yeah, for me, I love those things, and that's life. But yes, I did bribe the individual bouncing the ball to start right at 11:12, right when we started our meditation, and to end right when we were done, just so you could spend 20 minutes with the bouncing ball, which is kind of like our head, it's just all over the place. Something to focus on or not, something to bother you or not. A couple months ago, we had something else going on here, and then it was a woman who shared so beautifully that her neighbor was doing construction on her house, and it was going on for a while. And as she was listening to the construction, she actually just kind of defaulted, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but came back to all her time sitting here and listening to the noise outside, or the dog being washed, or the, whatever's going on over there. And it's just sound around us, So it's stuff to practice with. Yeah. What else? The hand somewhere. Yeah.
Pima Chodron says that if you just keep on sitting, the transformation will essentially eventually take place. I went to 3 different zendos in a row, and all 3 teachers committed sexual misconduct, and they had all been, teaching for ages. They had done a huge amount of meditating.
Yeah.
One of them started as a monk when he was 14. He was well known.
Yeah.
And the other 2 had received transmission from well-known teachers, and I just still struggle to get it.
Yeah.
How somehow it failed. I guess the
Yeah.
meditation failed because it ruined the place. The one place lost half of their sangha, the other place just collapsed.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've talked about this for years, you and I personally outside of here as well. And I'll say this, and I'll kind of close with this, happy, gentle thought, is it's important, and I'll start with this, and again, I've said this, for those who don't know, we've had this very long conversation around this, so I'm just going to kind of touch on a few, things right now, kind of to highlight. It's always important to understand that, and even the emphasis you put on, they received transmission, so obviously it didn't work. What didn't work? Did transmission take away their human element? Or did you perceive that because of who they are, that I'm not defending them, I'm challenging you, we've had this before, or because of how you perceived them, that you expected them to be a certain way? I read years ago that the Buddha said that if there was anything more difficult to move through, to move beyond, than the sexual drive and desire, if there was anything more challenging than that, then he never would have awakened. That was the most difficult thing, to move beyond that craving and beyond that desire. What those people did is not okay, it is not safe, it is not healthy, it absolutely destroys communities.
Yeah.
But for you to say to me, does it surprise me? Not at all. Because what are Buddhists? Especially in the Zen tradition, they're not monks, first of all. What they did is wrong. But to say that meditation doesn't work as if it was going to kill their sexual desire, they're just human.
Not that it would kill it, but somehow that they would be compassionate enough that they wouldn't, they'd be able not to just act on it. And so many of
Yes.
them in a row.
Yes. And again, for those who are new to Buddhism, often people come into Buddhism thinking like, oh, well, there's all this sexual abuse and sexual assault and abuse of power and all these other religions. Buddhism must be free from that. No, it is not. It has just as much, I don't know if I can say just as much, but it has a history of it no different than any other religion. It is there. when you have people who sit up here, like literally me or anyone who sits here in any Buddhist place over the last 2,000 years, there is a power thing going on, right? And without getting too far into it, I still remember when we moved here, downtown Temple, everything was on one level. There was no like platform step up. And I remember when we first moved here, I like refused to sit up here. I just wanted to sit down there because this idea of being above people was really weird. You know, plus I'm a short dude and I'm not used to looking down on people anyways. But this idea of sitting up here in this elevated place, and ultimately I caved because you just couldn't see anybody from down there. But this abuse of power and sexual misconduct has always been there. The only thing I push back on is this idea that thinking that because somebody meditates or because somebody is into Buddhism or practices, that means they're going to be beyond that. It doesn't.
I guess somebody who has devoted their life to it and is fond of saying they've been sitting for 30 or 50 years.
Right.
Would be very much more self-aware.
Yes, I understand. And I recognize that it sounds like I'm defending them, and I'm not. You know, I know you know this, right? But I'm just saying to those who've never heard me talk before about this, it could come off as if I'm defending what they have done. And I am not.
No, I don't feel
Yeah.
that way. I feel that you're pointing out to me once again that I need to be more aware.
Yes, it is your perception of them and thinking that they have achieved or attained some, and this is the most dangerous thing in all religious constructs, I believe, especially in Buddhism, because people come into it thinking that, oh, like, okay, well, the Buddha was a celibate monk. Before that, he had many women, like consorts, endless, and was married, and had children, and then chose a life of celibacy for the last 45 years, right? So people often think that because the Buddha lived that way, that means all Buddhists live that way. There are many sects of Buddhism where the monks and nuns do choose that path. And then Zen Buddhism, for example, the Zen priests, they marry, they have families, they have relationships. So the danger is when you take people like that and you put them in the position of having students and presiding over people. That's the danger.
They were all married.
Right. Well, yeah, there you go. Yeah. And I know, I mean, we all know the local, again, I'm not going to name drop here, but we all know the local ones, even in the last handful of years. It is everywhere, you know? It's really dangerous. And, you know, I'll close on this thought, is that, you know, for me, it's one reason that when we built this place 18 years ago, that we were not going to have head monks or nuns. We were not going to have teachers take on students. Those dynamics that you set up, we do, as you know, we do not meet one-on-one with people. We don't do it, you know? I mean, the Recovery Sangha wanted to introduce a mentorship program, and I was like, yo, be careful, because as soon as we start meeting one-on-one with people, it sounds like you're a teacher taking on a student. And that creates a dynamic that I don't have trust or faith in anybody to be able to do effectively. That's how much faith I have in the people here. Sorry. Right? Sorry to the enlightened ones. You know, but I don't take this stuff lightly. And so for me, it's setting up guardrails to recognize we are all unenlightened, ignorant people, and we will do unenlightened, ignorant things. And that's not okay. Yeah, it's tough.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love you, you know that. All right, so we'll join palms. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. All right, a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thank you for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma Bum. We opened up this temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead, we are not monks, we are not nuns, we are not gurus, we are not masters, we are not teachers, and we do not look for students. We're simply practitioners. We take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and we put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. every night, different practices going on, different people leading from a different Buddhist tradition. Thursday, 4:30, we do, I think, probably one of the best things around here. We prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, also known as peanut butter and jelly, and we feed people who sleep on a street. So anytime you think your life sucks, show up Thursday, 4:30, we'll make some sandwiches, and then head downtown and pass it out. Other than that, couple things out of the ordinary coming up, but that'll get announced. Oh, it's May 24th, I believe it is. Yeah, May 24th. We will have our very own Dana. We'll be doing, for years, we did a singing bowl meditation once a month for like 10 years. And then pandemic hit and we stopped. So we're going to bring that back at least once now, starting May 24th. And it'll be a crystal bowl meditation the 24th at 2 o'clock. So otherwise, stay tuned on everything else that's going on. Buddha Fuse there if you need it. Oh, and today is the third Saturday of the month, which means we'll be doing our monthly temple clean. So anybody who wants to stick around will be here from 12 to 2 over the next 2 hours, cleaning this space that thousands of people use. So thank you all.
Thank you, Jeff. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.